Hello everyone, this is Hakaym and welcome back to some more World of Warships, and today we're taking a look at user replay. This is deweirdout. Yeah, let's make sure I say that right. Deweirdout. He is currently playing in the Tier 8 USN Light Cruiser, the Cleveland. And this is prior to the most recent update. This is straight at 0.8. So it doesn't have the increased DPM for all AA guns. So keep that in mind when watching this battle. It's a little bit slightly outdated, but it's still a good replay, and there's some good tactics I would like to point out. He is actually joined up with his div mate in the Cossack, and starting off, it is a tier 9 battle. There is a tier 8 CV, Kaga on the friendly team, and a Shikaku on the enemy team. And a few things I would like to kind of point out as the battle commences. So starting off, a lot of issue has been concerned with DDs and CVs. CVs are very much a hard counter to DDs right now, and there's been a lot of blame and a lot of complaints towards that. And one very good tactic, I'm really liking this, and fortunately it actually works out for deweirdout, is the fact that supporting your DDs with your light cruisers. Now, it's always a random, and you're not always going to get that support, but when you're in a div mate, when you're in a div, such as they are, being able to support one another with the ability to protect one another from planes, as well as providing smoke and defensive measures against the enemy team, is extremely strong. So as you can see, his div mate is currently not being really harassed by the enemy CV, and instead the enemy CV is going to go after the friendly Fletcher. Friendly Fletcher goes ahead and smokes up and tries to harass the Fletcher. Now, I will say the CV doesn't do particularly great job when focusing, and it's always difficult. I will always admit it's not very easy, but for whatever reason the CV has a slight hard-on for deweirdout. Now, he has opened up on the enemy Cleveland, and he did actually mention that he's actually a decent shot with long-range USN light cruisers, and we're going to be seeing that quite a bit as the battle commences. But look at his current position, and this is actually really key. So he is not pushing in, he's actually in a kiting position, which is a really good idea, because you don't want to be pushing in, especially when you don't really know where all the enemy battleships are. Granted, there's only 3 battleships in this battle, which is kind of surprising, because as of late it's been a heavy battleship meta lately, and that's because DDs have been a little bit more scarce. But for whatever reason, this is actually a fairly standard battle with actually a decent amount of cruisers on both sides. So he has focused on him. Unfortunately for his div mate, who apparently lost his engine in the smoke, unfortunately goes down to the enemy kamikaze, so that is really unfortunate for him. But this Cleveland is being way too aggressive right now. As you can see, he's currently being focused by the Atlanta, the Fletcher, and obviously deweirdout. So, I mean, hey, that's his very first kill of this battle, and hopefully I'm pronouncing the name correctly. I'm taking a stab at it, and I do apologize if I get that name wrong, but does get his very first kill. And now this battle may not be a super impressive as far as damage is concerned, but that's fine. How he plays it is what I really want to be focusing at. So for whatever reason, the enemy team all went to sea, and I've noticed this recently in this map, is for whatever reason they really go heavy on the sea side. They usually get on that 9-10 line and they push down. Don't exactly know why that is, but that's where all their heavy battleships are. Their Ashitaka and their Iowa. Granted, Ashitaka's tier 7, and their KGV's very passive, very passive. Now, I don't know why The friendly battleships are currently in the middle. Like, the positioning on that is not great. They're not supporting their team, so I have heavy criticism on those battleships not being actually in a position to help out, because they have a Megami Hipper and a Kitakaze plus the Kaga all on the western side dealing with the Iowa, the Cleveland, the Luoyang, the Nueve de Julio, and the Ashitaka and the Cleveland over there. So not really big fan of that because for the most part they have control of the western side. This Atlanta is getting a little bit too aggressive here. But as you can see, he's, being in a decent position. He's pushing up with his destroyers, just now coming into range against the Ibuki. And I don't know what... Both sides are making very questionable decisions, and I know hindsight's always 20/20, and I fully agree with that. You're never always going to be very much aware of what everything's happening with everyone. But as you can see, the Kitakaze had opened up. The friendly Fletcher actually lays down a smokescreen for the Atlanta to try to help him out. But I don't think this Atlanta really is going to use it. Kitakaze just comes in range and does take out the friendly Atlanta. Yeah, that Atlanta not really in the best position. Way too hyper aggressive. Atlanta's definitely not a ship that can push. It really does require islands to really be responsible. But the smokescreen actually proves very beneficial for Weird because he does, for the most part at times, does disappear from detect. And being this cautious is not a bad idea because we still know there's a KGV and there is also the Ibuki. The Ibuki, which is actually a decent tier 9 cruiser if played properly, could very much easily take care of a Cleveland if the Cleveland misplays. And fortunately for us, Weird is actually doing a really good job playing his Cleveland, taking his time, because really the biggest issue with the Cleveland versus especially tier 9 is the fact that she doesn't have a heal. And so she can't recover that health. So you do have to be a little bit cautious when dealing with these battles, especially against tier 9s, where they can actually repair and heal up the damage that was accosted to them. So he's doing actually a decent job. Does pop his Hydro, does know there is a Kitakaze around somewhere. And gun positioning is actually really important. Did you notice that he did switch over to the left-hand side because he knows he's going to be turning towards the eastern side, but he also knows there is a Kitakaze north of him, so he does have his guns all available and instantly begins shooting at the Kitakaze, and he does a really fantastic job focusing down DDs. You'll see him actually switching from a battleship who's very low in health to a destroyer. We'll see that in a little bit, but does start focusing down this Kitakaze, doing his job supporting the Fletcher. Fletcher obviously got into a really bad position and is unfortunately paying for it because the Kitakaze is actually a great anti-DD ship. And granted, he's not hitting all that many shots, but every little bit does help and it's starting to add up. Unfortunately, the smokescreen has gone down and instantly he's targeted by 3 ships, including that KGV, which really hasn't been doing a lot. Haven't really seen much of him to be overly concerned with him. But once again, pulling away. Unfortunately, he has to deal with the Cleveland and Nueve de Julio, sorry about that. Unfortunately loses his rudder, and the Shikaku goes for 2 targets I probably wouldn't overly recommend, especially if the hood still has a decent amount of his AA. Instantly loses all of his torpedo planes. Now, he does switch over to AP, and probably at this range, not the best choice because the arcing of the shells is just, it's very high, and they are 152mm caliber shells, so your HE actually probably would be a tad bit better, but you can see how much damage that Ibuki just did against Weird. He's already down to 22,000, lost a third of his health, so he does have to be a little bit cautious further into this battle. Granted, the enemy team is actually doing a little bit better job. They're currently down 1 ship, but they're ahead in 2 caps as well as points. And as I said that, they actually just lost their Lo Yang to the friendly Kaga, which is apparently doing actually a really good job in this battle. And Shikaku coming back in. Now granted, if you can get it, you can actually hit Cleveland's fairly well, but just due to the fact that he's also being supported by the friendly Hood, and the fact that for the most part, and this is always difficult to tell when you're playing a CV, for the most part, Weird hasn't lost a lot of AA, so it's always hard to tell. It's always hard to gauge that, but unfortunately he just lost a decent amount of planes there. Does instantly focus the Ibuki. Now granted, he got a decent shot there and does switch over to HE, which at this angle, your HE is going to do a far superior job. Now, I understand where he's coming from, but like I said, longer ranges, your AP is just not that good, just because of the caliber of the shells and the arcing on the shells, that your HE would do much better. So close targets against an Ibuki, AP all the way. Broadside, you're going to chew up an Ibuki or Mogami that is foolish enough to show you any broadside. So he does slow up, does disengage, because obviously that is an Iowa, and the Iowa can just overmatch his armor, and instantly switches his position to this Kitakaze. Now Kitakaze's position, I'm kind of twofold, because right now Kitakaze is doing a really good job. He's harassing, he's taking out the friendly Fletcher, and unfortunately the enemy Kitakaze is too far away for Weird to actually do anything with. However, Kitakaze really needs to try to reposition more towards the middle and try to support there, because there is still obviously one more DD on Weird's teams left. And depending on where he was last spotted, which I'm assuming he's probably last spotted down in the south, as he was just spotted by the enemy CV, which currently the Cleveland on the south side don't really agree with his positioning. He's way too south. But anyways, enemy Kitakaze really probably should be pushing more towards mid. Doesn't do that actually, which is very interesting. But the friendly Kitakaze actually takes out the Nueve de Julio, and just look how many planes this is shooting down. Like, the Cleveland's still a beast in AA concern. Still doing really good damage. All that's left in that right there was that last bit of die bombers. Currently sitting at 14 plane kills, and once again, it's always hard to gauge whether or not a ship actually has a decent amount of AA, especially when you're a CV. So you gotta keep in mind of the positioning. Right now, probably his best target, what the Shikaku should be going after, is the Megami on the south side and the Kitakaze, which it looks like the CV is actually starting to do now, which I guess too late's better than never. But anyway, Megami actually takes out the enemy Cleveland that was trying to chase down the friendly CV. And once again, Weird is trying to reposition to where he's able to support his target. Is being careful of the Iowa, because the Iowa is once again a target that can very much deal with a Cleveland, so he does have to be very, very cautious. Now the Shikaku, I said that very oddly, is currently in the classic CV position where it just runs into an island and doesn't really move. Now granted, I don't know if he's actually going to move anytime soon, but if he's spotted like that, honestly, I would be repositioning somewhere a little bit further north. I don't dislike his position. I think it's actually a really good position, because he's able to recall his planes a lot quicker, get them out there, deal the damage, so very much liking his position. And once again, very good position. He's kiting. He actually gets a decent hit on the Ibuki, but he does have to be aware there's an Iowa coming, so it does look like he's starting to speed up. Does have the support of the friendly Hood, which the Hood actually got a recent buff, and is trying his very best to still deal damage against that Buki, but does have to be careful of the enemy Iowa, which the enemy Iowa completely misses, just completely misses his shots, which is very amusing. And this actually is a really good position. He does start slowing down, but unfortunately he's not going to be able to maintain that because obviously the Iowa is going to be moving away inward. So as I did mention earlier, the Kitakaze is all the way up north. He actually, I don't think, maybe moved one space last time he was spotted. Now granted, he probably did move a little bit more, but in appearance it doesn't look like he's actually repositioned. And don't know if he should have, I'm pretty certain he should have been actually more aggressive, more towards the middle. KGV definitely could have done a bit more. He's still so far north, and this is where you want to be. You want to be focusing single targets, such as this Iowa, such as that Ibuki, versus the majority of your team. Because just watch how quickly this Iowa goes down. Granted, he's only about 4,000 points of health, so not overly impressive, but this Iowa's essentially by himself. He does have a, I think, near full health KGV. Shikaku, it looks like he's actually starting to reverse. Still kind of in the same position. Really probably should be pushing out. But once again, I'm liking the positioning that Weird is providing. He's always moving with his fleet. He's always providing additional AA, as well as support against enemy cruisers and destroyers. And does obviously ask the Kitakaze to push towards C because B is essentially captured. And Shikaku is obviously not in a really good position. He's trying to get out of there, trying to move as quickly as he can. Now, I will say, playing a carrier, sometimes you can lose track of your ship and not pay attention to its positioning, but you really need to do that whenever playing your CV. Always be aware of your positioning, and instantly there is the Kitakaze. He does switch over to that Kitakaze. Kitakaze has been a major harassment. He's actually, besides the positioning, I will grant him he's done actually a really good job as far as being harassing. But unfortunately, he's actually dealing with the Cleveland and is actually starting to take fire. And I'm pretty certain he probably really should be trying to hold his fire, but his positioning right now is not great, and unfortunately for him, does go down, and that is kill number 2 for Weird. He does take out the enemy Kitakaze, and you can see how quickly the teams can just switch. Previously, not too long ago, enemy team was ahead in capture points and points, and obviously all that's left on the enemy team is that KGV, who's actually still fairly healthy. I think he has about a half of his health, and the Shikaku as well. Shikaku, I mean, he's at least been doing his job. Granted, attacking certain ships, yeah, certain ships he probably really, but just look at that. Look how quickly the Iowa can just focus down a Shikaku plane. All gone. I don't even think it made it to the drop. But that's actually going to be it for this battle because it's almost over with. So, not a bad game for Weird. Did a really good job with positioning. That's pretty much was the whole point of this, is positioning is key whenever playing. And granted, randoms, it's random, but doing your very best, being able to get in a good position really means you will be able to support your team and help win the battle. And that is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Also, if you do want to offer replays for me to watch and comment and make observation, do send them in either my Discord channel or to my email address, hakaymgaming@gmail.com. I will take a look at them, do provide the screenshots, because that actually really does help me gauge whether or not it's actually a battle that would be interesting and might have a decent advice as far as expertise, as far as what you should be doing. But anyways, Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button. You guys have a great and fantastic day. Zai Chen.